All right, so let's get started. We still have a couple stragglers, but I want to be respectful of your time. I really appreciate everybody getting together today. I know everyone as real estate agents have a calendar that's completely full, especially with everything you got going in your personal lives too. So thanks for coming out. Hoping we can learn today together. This training, I took 5 steps of things that hopefully you can take away to help you take more listings for you and your business. I wrote down a few questions for us to think about here as we get started. So the first one is, at the end of the day, how many of you want to take more listings, right? How many of you want a more predictable income, right? It's one of the things as a real estate agent, it's one of the biggest complaints is it's hard to have reliable income, right? It can go up and down. How many of you are looking not just for the money, but to impact people's lives in a more positive way? Right? It's not just about the money. Like, this is a cool job. We get to help people create wealth if we do this the right way, right? So I wanted to do the training for 2 reasons. The first one is with the recent NAR lawsuits, the low inventory we've all been dealing with for 3, 4, 5 years now at this point. Taking listings is more important now than ever. It's always been the key to an agent's business, but now I think the ability to separate from the competition with the agents who understand a strong listing process versus the one who are only working with buyers, the room to separate from your peers as agents and create some business growth for yourself, to me, there's probably never been an opportunity like this. The second reason is taking listings is the single most profitable thing you can do to scale your business. Right? It's not just about, again, the money, but it's about what you can do with your time. As a listing agent, you control your time, you control your income, you can control systems and processes for your business and how that listing is shown and treated. Right? You're not just kind of left to another listing agent who's going to discount the commission they're offering you or tell you how you have to run your business and deal with you. You make the rules as a list, and that's extremely important from a time management perspective. So I think the need's strong. So my goal here is really, I'm going to share 5 things with you, or 5 thoughts, but my goal is if everyone could take one thing away, that's a win, right? If you could take one action step that you can do tomorrow or the next 90 days, that's a big win. So that's my goal. Hopefully everyone could at least take one, all right? So it's not the most convenient setup here, so bear with me. I wanted to give you a little background because context, I think, is important. All right, so I used to be a teacher. My first 5 years in the business, I sold 17 homes. I took 2 listings. So 15 of them were buyer sales. It's about 3 listings and change a year, okay? My last 10 years, I've sold 579 homes, 115 buyer sales. So what's the difference? The first thing that jumps out at me is a clear shift. Not 90% of my business was buyers, right? I thought that you have a buyer, I mean, that's a paycheck. You chase that buyer around until they buy a house, right? So, which is an extremely exhausting way to spend your time. The last 10 years, I shifted about 80% of those sales were listings. So that just a clear shift in perspective, right? So going back here to this time, I was a teacher. It was safe, secure job. I was comfortable. It was hard to make a shift or a jump in my life, but I saw people doing this at a high level, and it always seemed to interest me and excite me. I knew it could be done. So, but I didn't have a plan that I believed in that gave me the confidence to make the jump, right? So I was searching for trainings like this, or YouTubes, or mentors, or coaches, and it wasn't until I found the right coach or the right plan that I actually started to get the confidence where I thought that I could do it, right? I didn't necessarily need to have the results first, but I needed to have something I believed in, right? And I was lucky enough to have found that, and I was able to sell. Once I made that switch and that light bulb went off, I sold 47 homes my first year full time when I made the switch from teaching. Now I know how scary that was, so I can relate to that for a lot of us. A lot of us as real estate agents, We have other jobs, and making that jump is hard, right? So hopefully there's a foundation here that if you are in that situation, it gives you some confidence to build off of. Because once you have that right plan and that light bulb clicks, the sky's really the limit. So again, I did that with an extremely narrow focus on the listings, right? It was almost like if you had a magnifying glass and the sun was beating down and all you could focus on was listings, right? Taking those buyers off the table, which is hard because when you have that buyer, that's a paycheck right there, right? So it's hard to take your eye off that paycheck and look bigger picture at trying to build a foundation for your business. So here's my question for you. Hopefully everyone has a note. If you need paper, it's over there. So first question, this is just for yourself, you don't have to share this, it's for your own personal. How many listings do you want to take over the next 12 months? Take a minute. Put some thought into it, don't just throw a number out. Like, what's realistic, but yet challenging? Something that makes you feel a little bit maybe uncomfortable, but you feel you can really get, if you really dug down and went hard for a year, that you could really get. All right, let's get into the 5 things. So first is mindset. I started here intentionally because if I finish with mindset, you'd probably be more mentally tired with the training. You might just take off and leave because no one wants to hear about this voodoo mindset stuff. But I will tell you, if you don't believe, nothing that I tell you or teach you will work, period. There has to be an inner belief, right? If you're simply going through the motions or saying, well, I'm going to try it and see what happens, like kind of tapping your foot in, the chances of you getting results are slim to none, right? You have to have a strong belief that what you're doing is helping people, is helping you, and has a long-term gain that's going to happen if you stick with it. To list property at a high level, there's a lot of rejection. We are told more than yes, told no much more than we're told yes. So I actually didn't even realize these numbers, but a couple months ago I did a little video and I thought, I'm going to go research my career as an agent, right? And I track everything I do, so I went back to all the years and I added them up. I was told no 48,000 times in the past 10 years. And you're probably saying, that's ridiculous, right? 48,000 doesn't make sense. I talk to 20 to 25 people a day on average, right? I do that about 240 days a year. So I'm taking 4 weeks off for vacation a year, all the weekends, all the holidays. If you do the math, 22 contacts a day gives you about 48,000 people after 10 years, okay? Now, if we go back to that previous slide, I sold 579 homes. I'm being told no constantly, right? You have to be okay with the no. You can't quit when you get the no. And I know it's a little bit cliche to say, but in this business, it is extremely relevant, right? If you're told no, there's a lesson there. Take some time to reflect. What can you change next time? And if you're doing this every day, there's always going to be a chance to apply that lesson from one of those no's. So again, if you're just tapping your foot in and you don't believe, you're going to get to about 1,000 no's. You're going to say, this is stupid, right? Who's going to stick with that? But if you're approaching it from a different angle and you're really trying to learn from it, now it's almost each no is exciting, right? For me, I know I'm going to talk to 25 people a day, so if somebody swears at me, that was an easy, quick call. Boom, I got my check, right? I'd rather have that than talk to the person for 10 minutes who's going on and on and on and then won't set an appointment with me. That swear at you no is way better than the lead you on no, right? So it's all perspective. It's all perspective. As humans, our brains are hardwired to find the easy and the comfortable way. This is a big part of the challenge. We want to stay with what we know. So when I tell you some of these ideas, I tell you to focus on listings instead of buyers, that fact alone is uncomfortable for 99% of agents out there, right? That's uncomfortable to take your eye off that probably paycheck and start focusing on this other unknown world, right? But that holding on, that comfort creates scarcity, and we can't learn and grow and help others when we're in a scarcity mindset. When you believe, you're willing to put yourself out there, get uncomfortable, Now you're coming more from a place of abundance, and this is where the magic happens, right? I can share everything I've learned the past 10 years with you because at the end of the day, Owen can reach people that I can't. He can relate to people that simply think I'm annoying, right? And vice versa, right? So there's plenty of business out there for all of us if we simply put the right plan into place. All right, so how do we battle this natural urge to stay comfortable? First, acknowledge that it's normal. It never goes away, right? So I've been using the system for 10 years, and I still get nervous in certain listing presentations or certain prospecting calls, or I don't want to call a center of influence and share some value with them, right? Those nervous things still come up. They never go away. So you have to acknowledge that it's part of the process. And when you feel yourself getting that, I'm gonna stay in my comfort zone here, that's got to be a light bulb. You have to realize it's happening because that's your cue to make sure you follow through on what you said, right? And I'll give you some more examples later on that one because that's a good one. All right, next, have some accountability in place. Probably one of the most important things that I'll share. And it seems simple, it's not a secret, but setting it up and sticking with it is hard. So I start my day, especially in the early years, I would have a role play partner where I had a scheduled call with them every morning for 5 days a week. And I had to be there on that call, and we would practice our scripts together. If I wasn't there, I was letting them down. Right? I had to start my work. I had to be at work. It got me to the office on time. I had to be there on time, or somebody was waiting for me on that other end. Humans are weird. We have this way we'll let ourselves down. We're kind of okay with that, but we don't want to let other people or even strangers down. Right? So use that to your advantage. Right? Find some people that are going to help you start your day the right way. From there, I have, to this day, I have prospecting partners. Our group, our team will do call days. And when my team's not doing a call day with me, I have a virtual prospecting group where I'm on with other agents who I mastermind with from around the country, other top performing agents. So here's the key to that. When you're finding accountability partners, your family, your spouses, your kids, even your good friends who maybe aren't real estate agents, they're not the best accountability partners. They want well for you, but they don't know the challenges and the obstacles that you're going through. So they might be trying to help you and let you off a little easy. When you're finding an accountability partner, try to find someone that's doing more than you. That's the key, right? So everybody that I check in with throughout the day, at the end of the day at night, I have 2 different agents who we text how many contacts we had that day, how many listing appointments we set, and how many listings we took. Again, narrow listing focus, okay? And all of those are agents by design that are doing much more than me, right? Because you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. When the people you surround yourself with are doing more than you, you're naturally going to get drawn up. And if you surround yourself with people who are not, they're naturally going to bring you down, right? So be intentional. Don't just pick anyone. Put some thought into how you can set up your day where now, if you didn't do your job, you have 3, 4, 5 people you have to put your tail between your legs and tell that you didn't do your job. Surround yourself with people doing more than you. So I think we can all agree this makes sense. It's probably safe to say, but obviously things get in the way. So what stops us from the accountability and doing some of this uncomfortable stuff? And I say this firsthand because this was one of my biggest things. It still is. Yeah, our egos get in the way, right? We think our way is better, and sometimes we got to go make a mistake a few times before we go ask for help. Right? And that's okay. Again, this is normal. This is normal. It's having the awareness that it's normal that gives you the opportunity to learn and grow. It takes blind faith to commit to something that doesn't fit into what you see and know already. This is really tricky. when you try anything new, you have to learn something new, you have to get uncomfortable, and you have to hope it works. So that means you really have to believe in whatever you're doing. You have to have blind faith, and that's hard to do. It's hard to take that first step and not just dab your toe in the water. So this is a thought. You don't have to write this down in your notebook, but I do want you to think about this. Not even just today, like on your ride home over the next couple days. Ask yourself why you want to list property at a high level. Your why has to be strong enough. There has to be a reason. If there's not a reason, you're not going to make it through the first 500 no's, right? Lots of people try this for 2 weeks and they say it's stupid and it doesn't work, right? These agents that are doing this system must, just be getting lucky or have some secret thing they're not telling people about, right? So make sure you have a strong why. Really spend some time and it's okay if your why changes. My why today is different than my why 10 years ago, but I still have one. That's what keeps me doing the same actions each day. So I wrote down a few more questions that aren't up there to put these in your notebook, because these are to think about after and later on today too. How far will you go to change? How committed are you? And are you willing to change some comfortable behaviors in order to achieve something you never achieved before? Think about those questions. The answers matter. The answers determine if it's all worthwhile or not. Okay, next point, number 2. Spend 80% of your time on high ROT, return on time activities each working day. So everyone's heard of return on investment. I like to look at it as a little different. I like to look at it as return on time. Because the money is really so you can have your time to do whatever you want with. Right? When you start looking at things from a time perspective and not a money perspective, now you can look bigger picture. When we look at return on investment and money, we chase the buyer and that hopefully immediate sale that takes so much of our time. But when we look at time, we realize how much time we're spending on that buyer to get there. So all action is not created equal. Are you spending your time or are you investing your time, right? So let's take a look at a real estate example. A seller asks you to paint some chip paint on a windowsill for FHA. Is that spending your time or investing your time? Spending, right? Seller asks you the closings tomorrow, they lost a mover, they need help moving a bed. Spending your time or investing your time? Reading a good book to learn. Investing, right? Door knocking some neighborhood listings to give them some information about the neighborhood. Spending or investing? Investing, right? Be scrolling on social media, right? Netflix, right? Every minute of the day matters. And if you're going to invest your time carefully, you create an abundance of other time that you can do whatever you want with. But if you're not strategic about the time you're spending at business, you never get the chance with that playtime. What tends to happen is we think we're working and we're doing some busy tasks that are real estate related and that do help in some way, but it takes up so much of our time that we can never move the needle in our business. Right? So take some time to think about that. There's only 4 actions that actually give you a return on time. 4. And we can debate this if you'd like. First, prospect for listings. What do I mean by prospect for listings? Okay. You're calling some type of proven lead source with some type of proven intention or script. We're not just winging it. There's a process, a method behind it, right? And we'll talk about who to call a little bit later on, but there's intention there. Door knocking, same thing. you have a specific value piece or information that you're sharing, you're going on people's doors to knock and tell them about it. My first ever listing I ever took in my career, I door knocked. It was an old expired listing that had been off the market for years. I knocked on the door. I was so nervous. Like, I was in the car and I just stared at the house forever in my car, thinking, hey, he's not home. I should probably just go. But I got out of the car, knocked on the door. Really old guy, really friendly. He said, hey, come on in. I didn't even say the script. I probably didn't even know the script at that point. I said, knocked on the door. I said, hey, I'm Robert with Century 21. Come on in. I was like, okay. I just came in. He's showing me around the house. We talked. Definitely didn't know what I was doing, but I tried and took the listing, sold the listing. So door knocking works. It's a different, it changes the scenery. It gets you out of the office. You can be outside on a beautiful day. How many jobs can you go outside on a beautiful day like today and go knock on people's doors? B, it's harder for someone to hang up on you when they door knock. It's really hard to, people will do it, but it's harder to slam a door in your face, right? It's harder to swear at you when you're door knocking. So that's another productive action, right? All time's not created equal. You get return on your time for those two. Present a listing presentation to a seller. Super strong return on time. You can be awesome here, but if you have no plan there, it really doesn't matter, right? That's your game day, right? NFL players, they play 17, 18 games a year. They are practicing every single day for that game. This is our game day. We're practicing every day. We're trying to set the appointment. Here, we have a half hour to perform. So we have to be ready, and this is definitely return on time. If we're efficient, strong, intentional here, that's a super strong return on time. And number 4, everybody hates this one. I did too. I still do, if I'm being honest. Practice. Again, NFL players, they play one game that lasts, 3-4 hours? How many hours are they practicing in the week? All of their time is spent on practice so they can perform when the game comes, right? Super productive return on time. So how many hours in a regular workday? 8 hours in a workday, right? Hopefully we're all working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Can you imagine if you spent 80% of your time focusing on income-producing activities like this, and only 20% of your time, dealing with emails, dealing with all the minutia that comes up in a transaction, updating our clients, doing searches on the MLS, doing CMAs, right? If you only spent 20% of your time on that stuff and spent 6 hours a day, can you imagine how many listings you would take in the next 90 days, 6 months, a year, if you did that? But it's certainly a lot of work, right? But if we're going to work 40 hours a week anyway, why wouldn't we do the work that matters? Like if we're still on return on time here, if you do the math, there are very few professions that get paid more than a top performing real estate agent. Professional athletes, movie stars, there's not a lot once you get down that list after that. Maybe some high-end entrepreneur business owners, but besides that, there's not a lot of professions that have the capability to earn income like a real estate agent can. So that's kind of exciting to me. That's what gets me going. So one more thought on that. Spending that much time on searching, prospecting, taking listings allows you to play offense in your business and not defense. What I mean by that, when you're playing defense, you're forced to be reactive. You have 1 or 2 clients, and you basically have to do whatever they say. You have no choice, right? You have no other income. This is what you got to finish the transaction. When you create a pipeline for yourself with these strong actions, you can say no to someone that's treating you disrespectfully. And that happens. We all know it. No matter how nice you are, no matter how hard you're trying, there are people out there that don't appreciate it, take us for granted, and treat us disrespectfully. This allows you to play offense and not work with those people. Select who you want to work with. All right. So my schedule, how do you fit it all in, right? We talked about some actions to take, but what are those specific actions? How do you put that puzzle together? Well, I already said I was a teacher, so I wanted to treat my real estate business and schedule my time and my work like it was a real job. Now, for me, this did come naturally because I came from the teaching world. I had to be at school at X time. Kids were coming to the class at X time. My lunch was at X time. So I was just coming from that world anyway, right? It's important to give yourself a schedule and treat it the same way. Your schedule is your map. Are you following the right map? Now, today's day and age, there are a lot of maps and magic pills being shared with agents. And if you spend your day following the wrong map, doing the wrong actions, you're not going to get anywhere. So you have to be following actions that you trust in order to give yourself a chance. So it has to make sense to you. So why do most agents fight the schedule? Because we're independent contractors, of course, right? And independent contractors, it is a blessing, but it's also a curse. As an independent contractor, nobody can tell you what to do. That's a blessing. But as an independent contractor, nobody can tell you what to do. So that's a curse. Nobody can make you go to work at 7 or 8 a.m. You can say, nah, I don't want to do that today. You have that option, right? There's no accountability there. There's no you're fired if you're not there, right? That's why creating that accountability earlier in the talk is so important. So now I'm going to show you, this is for me. Now you can copy it, but you don't have to do it the same way, okay? This is how, pretty close to this, Christine's been with me for, 6, 7 years. How often do I stick to this schedule?
Sometimes you're pretty consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, but once in a while you'll pick up it a little bit.
Yeah.
For the most part, you're very, very regimented.
Yeah. So here or there with life happens, it might change a little, but this schedule is what I've used to list the property that I have over the years. So early morning is when you do the admin work. Now for me, I wanted to get this done out of the way so I can be clear for my prospecting and be present in those calls and really focus in, right? So what is admin work? This is where you return calls, weekly check-ins with your clients, CMAs, negotiate, emails, write contracts. It's busy work. It's not moving the needle for your business. It's servicing your business, right? Now, if you're doing 50 deals, you probably need 2 to 3 hours in your schedule of admin work if you have good systems in place. If you're doing 10 to 20 deals, you probably need an hour a day of admin work, right? If you time block your schedule and you do that, there's enough time for it all. So get that out of the way early. 7:30 to 8 is when I would do my role play. I'd be in the office. I'd be practicing my scripts with my role play partner. That made me get in the office on time, like I shared. 8 to 11, prospect for listings. So this is time that has to be gold. It has to be blocked off. So if your clients are calling you during these times, you can't pick up your phone. If you're getting an email, you can't pick up your phone, because that's distracting you. You have to be focused on what you're doing. Whoever you're prospecting to on the phone will sense you're distracted. It won't work. And the good news, I also have admin time right after my prospecting at 11 o'clock. So in my mind, if Susie Seller's calling, I don't have to get stressed out because I know I'm going to call Susie Seller back before lunchtime at 11 o'clock. If it's an emergency, like we're not the fire department. There is nothing that can happen in the real estate world where you need to be available that minute, right? If there's a fire, they should call the fire department, not us, right? Anything can wait till 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock or whenever you schedule that catch-up time. Then I would go on lunch. Then my listing appointment, buyer appointment, in the beginning when I was doing buyers, I'd do them at the same time between 12:30 and 3. So I'd give myself a little travel time. 12:30 to 1:30 would be listing appointment 1. Then I give myself some travel time. 2 to 3 would be my next listing appointment. And again, obviously you can't return calls during that time. Your phone should be off. So you need some admin time right after there to be able to catch up on whatever you missed. Now I have 3 different points of the day where I can service clients. So they can go without me for a 3-hour clip here. They can go out without me for a 3-hour clip here. And the good news is there's 5 days in a week. I have 2 appointment slots a day. That's 10 appointment slots for a week. Now, if I ever got to the point in my career where I was listing more than 10 properties a week, I would have a problem. But I'm not at that point yet and probably will never get there, right? So if you're listing 40 properties a month, this schedule won't work. If you're listing 4 or 5, you have extra time on the appointment slots, right? And you have to keep that in mind too. That's like free time. So this is the danger time, if I'm being honest. Like the good agents, top agents, they're rock solid with the morning. But when they don't have appointments, that's where they get loose because they feel like they have a little bit of free time. But if you're really focused in, that's more time to do some extra door knocking or use another action-oriented step that we talked about earlier. One of the coolest things, before I switch off schedule, one of the coolest things about this job, about real estate, it's not only the wealth you can create, but to me it is how you can schedule your time around your life, whether that's family, hobbies you have. You have to do all these actions in a day, but you can put that puzzle together any way you want. So you can make time for all the things you want to do in life. I've always got excited about that. Now, if you can follow the schedule 80% of the time, you'll win, right? There's always going to be a seller that says, I can't meet you today. I got work or what have you. And then it's a business decision, right? Are they motivated? Are they going to do something now? Right? Is this a client that's aligned with you personally? If they are, it's a business decision. I'll go to a listing appointment on a Saturday. I'll go at nighttime. It's just not the norm. You'd be surprised how many people will take off work or cancel an event or whatever, or meet you on a lunch break because they want to respect your time as a professional. So again, if you believe that this schedule is possible or whatever schedule you make for yourself, the client will believe too. But if your response is, what time's good for you? Now that's the worst return on time response we can give because now we're at their mercy. Friday night at 7. Oh, great, right? Like, let's make the rules. Okay, so I shared this piece already. Okay, so now who do we contact? You've talked to me about all the minutia, Rob, like what, I just want to know who to call, right? Okay. So great agents use 5 sources. Why? Markets change. Things happen that are out of our control. In the beginning of my career, I literally built it on calling expireds. It was a totally different market. Everybody was leaving Connecticut. There were so many listings, so many expireds each day. All the sellers were mad they couldn't sell their house, so expireds were great, right? But after COVID, expireds, FSBOs, if you weren't selling your house in the past 3 or 4 years, there was a real problem there, right? That's a big red flag. Same thing, FSBOs were selling them on their own a lot. So if I had never pivoted over the years, I probably wouldn't be doing this training today, right? But luckily, I had some great mentors and coaches. I studied what these great agents were doing, and every agent I talked to or sat down with and interviewed, all they talked about was their database and customer service, right? So, and this was hard for me. Like I remember, I'm like, I can call the expireds. I didn't care. I didn't know them. I didn't care what they said to me. That was easy for me. But now I call your friend and talk to him about real estate. So I remember I would literally stare at my phone. Like, all the top agents are doing it. And I'd close my eyes. I'd look at it 5-10 minutes, close my eyes, and press dial. And then once you start talking, it's fine, right? They're your friends. But it's hard to make that call. It's hard to take that first step. So for me, this was one of the hardest pieces. But this is why great agents use 5 lead sources. Because when a market changes, your business just keeps on going. When the market crashes, expireds are back. Yeah, it's okay. I've been doing those all these years. Now I'm ready for them again. When the market dips, well, I got my database and some just sold calls and absentee owners. We'll talk about that in a minute, right? It's like when you invest in stocks, the good financial advisors say, you buy in different sectors, right? So when something happens, your money's protected. If you invest in real estate, don't just buy one property. Buy a bunch over time. Your money's protected. This is how you protect your real estate business. 5 different sources. So none of these will work if you don't. We've already talked about it's hard, it's difficult, right? You have to believe, you have to have a plan. You can't go through the motions on this. It's a lot of work. This is why most people don't teach this, by the way, because getting people to buy into putting this amount of effort into their real estate business is much harder than all of the magic pill formulas that are out there that sound very easy. Your skills matter. That's why I talked about practice being an essential action that we can take. That is our separator. That is our value. Our ability to communicate information to the client and present information to them in a way that makes sense, that they can understand, makes you stand out against your competition. Not you saying I'm number one in this and number one in that. That pushes them away. When you get them to understand, that's a light bulb. You got them. That you were able to connect with them. So your skills matter. 70% of the business comes from aggressive lead follow-up. Ricky knows I talk about this all the time. It's something a lot of us leave on the table, right? We're looking for that new business. We're servicing our current clients. And what we don't touch is all that middle. This is such a timing game. If you're not there at the right time, you lose. It could be your brother, it could be your aunt, it could be your second cousin, your good friend. If you're not there at the right time, we've all heard it. Oh, I just went to the open house and you were busy and I bought the house, right? We've all heard it, right? Like that middle is the magic. 70% of the business comes there. So if you simply put in a lead follow-up plan for your business, you're 2-3xing your business just with that. If that's the only thing you take away from this, to time block lead follow-up each day, next year at this time you'll have twice as many transactions. Well, I guess you have to have some leads too, but I'm assuming you do. So the clear number one source is the database, and I've tried everything. I have paid for leads. I don't now. I've tried Zillow, I've tried Realtor, Dave Ramsey, mailing strategies. Any strategy out there I've tried over the years. And sure, deals trickle in from some of these strategies. But there is a clear number one strategy, and that is your database. Having a clear and intentional plan with your database will give you a 10% return on investment all day, every day. It's been tracked for years for agents who have been doing this a lot longer than me. So that means if 500 people are in your database, that's 50 deals a year. If you have a plan, it's not 50 deals a year if you just wait for them to call you. But if you're strategic about it, offer them value quarterly in a couple different ways, you'll get a 10% return. And I think everybody, if you go through your phone, can probably find 300 to 400 people. So we're not talking about anything else. And everyone in this room is probably a 30 to 40 deal producer alone if they honed in on this system alone. One of my mentors told me earlier, there's agents who love working with their database, and there's agents who love the hunt. They love working with people they don't know. And then there's great agents, and they do both. Those are the really big producing agents. They do both. There is a number two source. It's a strong number two source. It's expireds and FSBOs. Even in a terrible market, these still work. And it should be part of your daily routine, because when a market changes, you need those skills there. If you just decide to stop doing them, when the market does change, now you got to practice, learn, get up to speed again. Now the challenge with expireds and FSBOs, they are the most competitive lead source because they have the most agents calling them. They have the highest level of rejection, and they require the highest amount of skills, because the only way to stand out on those expired and FSBO calls are if your skills are rock solid. If you have rock solid skills, you can win. You stand out. But if you're not willing to practice and get better, and you're just going to try to make the calls, you're going to get blown out of the water. You're competing with a lot of agents. You could be a new agent, a veteran agent, it doesn't matter. If you believe and you're passionate, sellers want to connect with someone, right? I've had expired agents not hire me because, as a veteran agent, because they connected with a rookie agent who's only sold 2 homes, and they said, you know what? That agent is just so hungry. They've never done it before. I want them to sell the house. Okay, right? There's people that I can't relate to that others can, and vice versa with all of you. So your track record does not matter. It's your skills. It's how you communicate that matters on those calls. It's nothing to do with your past sales. I've had expireds or FSBO say, you know what? You sound like everybody else, but you're the only person who wore a suit. So I'm going to hire you because of that. I've had people that say, you sound like everybody else, but you're always smiling. I'm going to hire you, right? So you don't know what it's going to be. Like, you can be the least skilled person in the world, but if you dress professionally, you show up on time. Do you know, NAR did a study. Do you know the biggest complaint the general public has about realtors? They don't show up on time, right? So when you're 5-10 minutes late for a listing appointment, they might not say it, but that's your first impression. You can win by dressing professionally, show up on time, than the veteran agent who's all scattered, coming in 5-10 minutes late. You've won just because of something simple you can control, right? So that's the second source. They're competitive, but you can learn how to win. The third tier, this is the harder one, harder to get results on this one right away. Just listed, just sold calls, absentee owner calls. These have been great during COVID. Okay, where the expireds and FSBOs have been weaker. These are a great way to make calls. Now, there's much lower rejection here because not as many agents are calling. Why? Because it's harder to take a listing. Most of these people aren't ready to list right now. We know the expireds and FSBOs want to sell. If we do a good job with our database, we know they'll refer people to us. But this, you got to talk to a lot of people to find a motivated one. They're absolutely in there. And what I love about just listed, just sold calls is you can target your market. You can go high end, you can go in your neighborhood. And the beautiful thing about the high end with just sold calls, there's no competition there. Most of the agents are afraid to prospect high end listings. My first ever $1 million plus sale was a just sold call early in my career. No other competition. Now, there's definitely now listings where you list right now, but here's the beauty of the just sold call. You're going to have good conversations with people who aren't ready to sell. They're just not ready, but you really connected with them because you're a good communicator. You connected with them. And at the end of that call, you're going to say, I know you don't want to sell now, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, but would it be okay if I reached out to you and gave you an update on the real estate market every now and then? And do you know what they're going to say? Sure. Now you've added them to your database, and we've already talked about the 10% rule. The bigger your database grows, that 10% number gets bigger too. So the goal on these calls is not just for now business. Remember, we're looking long term. We're not chasing. We're coming from abundance. We're looking for that long-term business. Now this is a relationship we've put in our database, and we can show them we care about them, and they're going to, whenever they are ready to sell, they're going to be aligned. They're going to do business with us with respect, which is huge. When you do business with people who respect you, you're protecting your mental energy. It just feels better. And then the absentee owners, similar tier. These are people that own multiple properties. The great thing about absentee owners, when you do find one that has to sell, oftentimes they own 3, 4, 5, 6 properties. So this is multiple transactions. Maybe not all for the first year, but normally you talk to someone that's been in the owned property for a while. They want to get out at some point. Now they have a strategy. They want to sell a couple every year for the next 3 or 4. If you can connect with someone there, it's not just one sale. So again, you got to talk to more of them. You might have to talk to 200 of these to find one. And here you might have to talk to 50 or 60. Right? So that's why the competition's down. But you don't need to be as skilled. So for your notebooks, write down which of the lead sources I just covered that you are comfortable starting to prospect in some way, door knocking or calling? At least pick one. And obviously, if you're already doing a couple, try to add one. If you're already doing all 5, good for you. Keep working on your skills. All right, so my last point, bear with me, this is the last point. Practice every day. We get better with reps, period. This is where confidence comes from, right? I am very introverted by nature. I'm very shy by nature. But I learned through practice that I could be comfortable talking to people on a listing presentation or even this. Right? The more you practice your scripts, the more comfortable you're going to be presenting. Here's the biggest thing people say about scripts. I just want to be myself. You know, I don't want to be somebody else. I'm not a robot. Right? I get it. And here's the thing. When you're first learning, you're a robot. You're trying to figure it out, and you're trying to remember, and you're not listening to what the person's saying. But once you learn the scripts, this is why practice is so important, then you become yourself. Right? The scripts are nothing more than good questions. They're a series of questions that allow us to, A, see if the prospect is motivated, and B, find out what their problem is, what the problem or challenge is that we can help them with. If they don't have a challenge, they're not going to hire us. Part of the reason they hire us is because we can take away a problem and make it easier for them. So the question and the scripts help bring that information out so you can be yourself. And the more you do it, the more confident you'll get. You got to do the reps. So there's 3 ways to practice with purpose to get better at scripts and better at presentations. And I've done all these at some level. First, practice to yourself. Sounds silly. In the early years, this is what I did. Because again, shy, introverted, I didn't want to practice with other people. So I'd be in the car on the way to the listing appointment, and I'd say the script the whole way to the listing appointment. And I'd pretend in my head, I know it sounds great, I'd pretend the seller was answering me, and I would just keep going with the script, right? If you do this well and you're pre-qualifying, you're going to know what the seller's objections are before you even go. So now you can practice what those objections are and have some good, strong responses before you even get there if you're doing some good pre-qualifying. So I'd be in the car and I would think about what they would say, my answers, and then when I got there, a lot of times those challenges would never even come up and I would just get the listing. But if they did come up, I'd be ready for them, right? So practice to yourself. Now, you can read to get ready for this. I read the script, I practiced to myself, right? Same thing. Next here, this one's a little harder, a little more uncomfortable. They all work. Video yourself. This can be done in a lot of different ways. You can video yourself doing a listing presentation at a table in your office at home. You could just video yourself prospecting on a call to yourself. This is huge because it creates more awareness. A lot of times we think we sound a certain way, and then when we look at ourselves, we're like, you know, you see facial expressions that you weren't aware of and tonality that you weren't aware of. So video creates more awareness. Experiment a little in the beginning. There was a point in my career where I was bringing my phone to listing presentations, and I would tell the seller, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, you know, I have a real estate coach, and customer service and presenting well to you is really important to me. Would it be all right if I videotaped our presentation so I could study it after and go over it with them? You know what they would say? Sure. Many of them would hire me right there because they were impressed that I was trying to get better in that fashion, right? They weren't pushed off by it. And now I'd go home and now I'd be like, holy, you know, that really opens some windows when you see a real listing appointment that you're really doing. But what are you willing to do? It all takes time. I mean, a few extra minutes, maybe an uncomfortable conversation with the seller the first time until you get used to it. But think about how much value that is, right? You can learn so much from that. You have to learn if you want to get better. And the last one's the best. I avoided this for a long time because I didn't want to do it. Role play with a partner who has similar goals to yours, or ideally more. This is, and again, we love our families, but don't role play with, that's not the best because they don't know what sellers are really saying. But if you role play with anybody in this room, you all know what they're telling us. And now you can say that to them and give them challenges and hear how they respond and give them advice. Hey, well, I did this in that situation and it worked for me. It's like a mini mastermind, right? Super, super powerful. So these are more questions to write down for yourself to think about later. Are you willing to put a practice plan into place for yourself? If you are, think about which one you'll start with, how, and more importantly, time block it in your schedule and tell yourself, write down for yourself when you're going to do it. Because here's the thing I've learned. To-do lists don't work. Everybody has a bunch of to-do lists, and they're probably, like me, they're probably all over your house, hidden under things. To-do lists don't work. Schedules work. When you have to be somewhere at 7:30, you go. And then when you know where to go at 8 o'clock, I'm just going to do the next thing. And I do the next thing, and you follow your schedule. To-do list, it's like, well, what do I want to do next? It feels good to cross something off, so, I'll do the easiest thing on the list, and you crossed it off, but that you didn't really move the needle. So, covered a lot. We're wrapping up here. Thank you for being so patient. What questions on anything? Questions, thoughts, ideas? Rob?
When you talk about your database, when you talk about CRM, what kind of database would you recommend?
I should have touched on that. So your database. This is what counts as your database. Anybody who knows you, like if you called them and said, "Hey, I'm Rob. How's it been?" They wouldn't say Rob who. They would know who you are. So it's definitely your friends and family. It's definitely all your past clients. It's definitely anybody you've done business with. And sometimes people are uncomfortable with this, but if you've paid somebody money to do a service for you, don't you think they'd want to return the favor if you're good at what you do? So here's a great easy script for that. It's one of my favorites. It's, hey, Mr. Dentist, I appreciate, all these years you've done such a great job helping me with my teeth, and your staff is so friendly. I'm curious. I sell real estate for a living. I don't know if you know that, but I'm curious. Do you have anyone you can trust if one of your patients or someone has a real estate question? And they say yes or no, and most of the time they'll say no. And well, heck, if I could ever return that service to you, I just want you to know I'm here. Would you, be open to sharing that with me if you hear of anyone, right? They helped you, you helped them, or at least let them know. Listen, here's the thing. With your database, when they don't think of you, it's not because they don't like you or they're mad at you. Think about how busy your world is. We all got our families and our jobs and our hobbies. Your world is so busy. It's the last thing on the mind is referring something to a realtor. So it's not their job to remember. It's your job to remind them. If you don't remind them, you can't be mad. Got to remind them. That makes sense?
I was going to follow up on that. How often? Because, you remind them once, time goes by,
Yeah.
it happens. How often does that database have to come in? Because now you're
Yeah.
could be a personal database that
Yep.
it's a fine line there, right? So
That's a super good question. So here's the system. You call them quarterly and you mail to them quarterly. You have to have those two in place. So for probably 8 of those 10 years, I had 0 CRM system. It's funny, all agents are always like, what CRM do you use? Like an Excel spreadsheet? Nope, I don't have it with me. I literally have index cards. Like that's what I do with leads, right? And yes, eventually I added a CRM, but I never teach the agents to do the CRM first because they use it as a crutch. Teach the fundamentals first. And then when you got that down and it's a habit, then you can add a CRM. But you might get 1 deal a year off a CRM. Nobody likes automated. Everybody knows when they're being automated. Right? Think about it. You call a customer service line, you got to print a bunch of numbers. Everyone knows when they're getting those fake texts and AI emails and texts. This is why I say now is the greatest separator. If you're willing to communicate with other humans on a level like this, you stand out, period, because everyone's looking for the easy button, right? So you call them quarterly, you mail to them quarterly. But it becomes tricky because you're like, shoot, I called them 90 days ago. I don't just want to say, hey, who do you know that's thinking about selling, right? You don't just want to bother them. You have to have value. Every call has to have something that is informational by nature. And some calls, what I love to do with my friends, some calls it's literally, and now this is somebody that maybe I've called them quarterly for 5-6 years. Some of those calls, I just want to check in and be a good friend and see how they're doing. Like, we all have friends that we haven't talked to in years, right? So if you're only doing that and just connecting with a friend as part of your database call, that's a win. So if you feel like it's been business too much, don't make it about business. Just be a good friend, right? But on the other calls, make sure there's value there. And don't make it always just being a friend, because then they're not going to know that you want to help and provide a good service to them. They're not going to know you have a good service. So there's a million things you can do here. You can tell them about a home that's sold in their neighborhood. You can give them a market update, right? How many homes are on the market, how many have sold. You can give them an update on interest rates and what you're seeing in the marketplace. You can tell them about a challenging situation that is prevalent in the market that maybe it's coming up a lot and you just want to make sure they know. You can tell them that you have a list of contractors who help your clients all the time, and you just want them to know that if they have any problem around the house, you want to be there for them so they're not stuck with a bad contractor. Like, make it that you care and just have a regular conversation. And what are they always going to say to you? They say, oh, by the way, how's business? Oh, well, it's great. You know, in this market, they just dropped the interest rates. We're still seeing the buyer demand strong, but heck, the inventory's still low. Do you happen to know anyone who might be thinking about selling, right? A lot of times they'll just naturally ask you, and it doesn't have to be some awkward thing. Just go have a real conversation, wait for your window, and in your window, you share the value that you've thought about and want to make sure you share. And guess what? That makes you more confident too. Because if you don't have anything valuable to say, you're not going to make the call. Andre?
How are you tracking your conversion rates?
Say that again?
How are you tracking your conversion rates on the phone?
Like what system?
How are you doing yours? How do you know? How many calls did you make? What do you convert?
So I'm at 72 contacts to get a signed listing, 50 something for a set appointment. And you know, some appointments will cancel, so on and so forth. So in the early years, I would have like just a chart, and I would be making my calls and just track, you know. But now I have a software program that we use, and it compiles all I log my numbers every day, but it compiles it. That's actually really, I'm glad you brought that up. What time is it, Christine?
It is 2:01.
Okay, if anyone has to go, feel free. I want to be respectful every time. But something I forgot that Andre just reminded me of, you know, when we're talking about practice, this is another study NAR did. The average agent takes 2.5 out of 10 listing appointments they go on. 2.5 out of 10. They're losing 75% of the time, right? Now, if you have a system and you're not even good at it, when I first started, I had the system and I was learning and failing. I would get 50% that first year, 5 out of 10, which is still not good. But just by having a plan and a system, you're doubling the NAR average. Now let's just say your average commission check's $10,000. If you're just getting 5 out of 10 versus NAR's 2.5, that's 25 grand, and that's only 10 listings. We're not talking about a year. I mean, if you're doing this, you should be going on 10 listings appointments every couple months. So there's a 50 grand spread there, you know, in a couple months, just based on your skills. And then, when I practiced and learned and got better, now I'm at 75%, give or take, and believe me, I'm definitely not the best. There are agents I mastermind with that get like 92%, 93%. That's insane. They're so good. It's all they do, right? I can get a lot better there. But 75% compared to 25%, now that's 50 grand every 10 listings. You know, that's real money. Like, the practice matters. That's a great question. Any other questions?
Well, when they're not in your database and you don't have their numbers, what are you using for a number source? Like RedX or Vulcan?
Yeah, so there's a million out there, and like, honestly, I've tried a lot. They all say that they're all the same, right? So right now I like RedX. I've always used RedX. I use them for expireds and FSBOs. And I use Realty Resource.
What's that?
ColeRealtyResource.com, I believe. If you email me after, I'll get you whatever the exact website. But I use Cole Realty for the just listed, just sold. I like that because you could map. Like if I say pick my house and I want to do the neighborhood, I could literally take a map and pull out a call list for just listed, just sold calls. Other questions? Okay. So I really want to, I guess, share a thought before we wrap up. If you want to go far, go alone. If you want to go fast, work together. I'm a big believer in team and having the right environment to support you on your goals because of all the challenges we talked about, right? If you want to take this one step further and apply some of the things we learned, we're having a call day with our team next week. If you're interested in signing up, you can reach out to us, you can put in the QR code, and we can actually work on some of the things that we've talked about here today. So thank you again. If you have any questions, I'm here, and I appreciate you all coming out.